Thank you for coming. I truly appreciate you guys making it out. I'm Nathan Fox, one of your esteemed, honored, and humbled hosts for the evening. I'm an illustrator, a bit of a comic book guy, and chair of the MFA Visual Narrative Program. We're a low-res interdisciplinary, thank you, low-res interdisciplinary grad program in visual storytelling, effectively artist as author. And I had the unique opportunity to be introduced to Claudia, publisher of Enchanted Lion books, by Leonard Marcus, one of our faculty, and an esteemed and very honored historian and critic of children's books in the U.S. And found out that Liniers would be coming to the U.S., and it was a great opportunity as the beginning of our summer intensive startup within the program to truly kick off with visual storytelling. And story visualized being our motto, it was really kind of a fabulous opportunity to kind of bring this to SVA and have these two titans of illustrative narrative here to kind of have a discussion on what storytelling, cartooning, politics, non-politics, and visual art may or may not be. So with that, I would definitely like to introduce Steve Brodner. He's an award-winning satirical artist and commentator whose work has appeared in every U.S. publication since the 1970s. Stephen Heller credits him with helping to reestablish the art of caricature in the U.S. as part of the New Wave, as discussed in the Savage Mirror. His work encompasses editorial illustration, journalism, authored sequential art and video. He has been a regular contributor to Rolling Stone, GQ, Esquire, The Nation, Harper's, Mother Jones, The New York Times, I'm not done, the Los Angeles Times, the Washington Post, Sports Illustrated, and a whole heck of a lot more. At the New Yorker, he's contributed over 200 assignments, many written by himself, including over 25 short films in the Naked Campaign series covering the 2008 presidential campaign. His work was collected in Freedom Fries, published by Fantagraphic Books in 2004, and a one-man retrospective Raw Nerve at the Norman Rockwell Museum in 2008. In addition to a full plate of illustration work, the man is exceedingly prolific, and a book on the presidents of the United States, which is the basis for his blog on Facebook. He teaches senior illustration and principles of illustration here at SVA, as well as summer nights at SVA, which begins June 10th, by the way. Some seats are still available.
Shameless plug, yeah.
Yeah. And sitting to his left, very, very glad he's here, Ricardo Liniers. Siri is an acclaimed and well-beloved Argentinian cartoonist whose widely popular daily strip, MACANUDO, cool, has been published in the Argentine newspaper, La Nacíon. I'm getting this right.
Spanish is amazing, man.
It's all that high school that just completely evaporated.
You're very scared though. La Nacíon?
La Nacíon. I have to I'm from Texas, so it's half an honor and a fear. For over 10 years. This strip has won him fans throughout the world, and very excited to start to see translations here in the US. And comparisons to the cartoonist heavyweights Charles Schulz and Bill Watterson. Liniers also travels around the world with musician Kevin Johansen, painting big canvases on stage, while Johansen makes music, and sometimes they switch. Liniers has over 3,900 published comic strips, has published over 25 books in Spanish, and has published more than 10 books in 9 countries. I think you should work a little more. From Brazil to France, Italy, and the Czech Republic. In the US, Enchanted Lion Books is his publisher for MACANUDO, with volume 3 publishing in October 2015, so keep an eye out. And Liniers is also published by Francois Mouly and Toon Books, His next book, written and drawn by Henrietta, will be published in October 2015 as well. Liniers is also a 3-time New Yorker magazine cover artist, as you can see one here. His first book to be published in English, The Big Wet Balloon, Toon Books in 2013, has been both a critical and popular success and was selected as a best of 2013 by Parents Magazine. Moreover, the 4th volume of MACANUDO to appear in French was recently selected in 2014 at the Angoulême Festival. Together with his wife, Angie? No? Yes. Liniers also founded the comics publisher La Editorial Camus, which published Latin American comics and Spanish translations of European and American comics. Liniers lives in Buenos Aires with his wife and 3 daughters, Matilda, Clementina, and Emma, but no penguins apparently, or at least not yet. So please give a warm welcome to Liniers and Steve Brodner.
Thank you. I want to point out also that I was a zombie in the movie Plaga Zombie 3. And I got decapitated in a wonderful, wonderful scene, and I didn't want you guys not to know that as well.
Thanks, Nathan, for that great introduction. It's fantastic to be here, so my feeling is that we're on a double mission tonight. Number one is to honor a brilliant artist, but also allow him to take us on a journey into worlds of illustration and narrative art that in America we may not be very familiar with. And I see a lot of people here who may be students. In fact, some students of mine I know are here. It's really thrilling, especially the more you enter this world and you see what Liniers has accomplished. And we were talking briefly outside about things that he can do that we can't do in this country. And he comes from a place that used to be a dictatorship, and he has more freedom as an artist than we, who think of ourselves as very free, but we can talk about this. Some of us feel like we're in a corporate straitjacket. You know, I could give you some lurid details about that from my side. But since most of us are from here, I think it would be really good to find out what Liniers has to report from his end of the world of narrative in Argentina and South America. Quickly, briefly, my feeling about narrative is that this is the way human beings talk to each other. This is, by telling stories, is really how we achieve empathy with each other. If I tell you, this is what happened to me this morning when I woke up, it's actually reaching out to another person and saying, this is a piece of my life, but for you to hear this, I am actually projecting a piece of someone else's world into your brain. And Woody Guthrie used to have written on his guitar, "This machine kills fascists." And I think that's what he meant. I think by telling the stories of the people, he felt that we were pushing ourselves further away from dictatorship, further away from fascism. So I believe when you're teaching narrative, you're doing more than that. You're actually saving the world, Nathan. So,
Thank you, Nathan.
So I think without further ado, let's save the world a little bit by listening to Liniers. And my feeling is that what we have in common is that we are both people who have one foot in cartooning and one foot in illustration. We both do both. And that for an illustrator, I'm a person who's maybe a little different than most of them because I put content, original content. I'm not waiting for assignments. I write and pitch a lot of my assignments myself. And I don't know if it's true of you. I think it may be interesting to ask. This is a huge early influence for me, Mad Magazine. And it's a place where commentary, angry, pissed off attitudes toward the world as it is, politics and culture come together with comics. And this is an early version of Mad, not the covers that we're familiar with, but it's Basil Wolverton, who is wonderful and delightful.
Well,
And were you reading Mad when you
yes, when I was in the 80s, you know, not way after this one, but in the 80s, my father, you know, he's there smiling happily, wanted me to learn how to speak English, you know, and sadly enough, he thought like, well, Mad magazine, you know, he should read this, and so I speak good English, nice.
Good English, nice.
Good English, nice.
And you know what a patrazibi is.
Yes,
and
yes.
Mr. Phonebone.
You know, the thing is, when my father gave me these magazines, and like I would love them for the drawings, but I was kind of, you know, they're in English. I would just read Spy versus Spy, and you know, that was wordless. But he wanted me to learn to speak English, so he would buy me he said, you know, whatever you want to read in Spanish, because I was already very much into reading books, and so whatever you read in Spanish, you know, you have to buy with your allowance. Whatever you get in English, I will buy for you. So, and I was like a very cheap little kid. I went like, I'll read in English, I don't care. So I started reading Stephen King, and Mad magazine were like my English, you know, and then movies, of course, and Star Wars.
Yes.
You know.
So here's a place where comics and caricature meet. Mort Drucker, and one of the big influences on me, one of the great Mad guys for a long time. He threw in Lucy, and but all his caricatures are dead on, but also dead on in interest of story. Okay, so he doesn't just draw people; he draws people in story, and to me, that's where illustration and caricature come together. Then I went from there in another direction, which is toward illustration, satiric. In the 1960s and 70s, the king was David Levine. Yeah. And David Levine could take a face and twist it and have it as a storytelling series of elements. And nobody drew Richard Nixon like David, or Lyndon Johnson. And of course, his most famous Lyndon Johnson, you probably all know it, where he's lifting up his shirt and you see the scar of Vietnam on his abdomen, where Johnson had just recently had an appendectomy, and David thought, well, let's just draw the map over there. You can almost see how I get an idea from David. This is from a preview from my book on presidents, Theodore Roosevelt, and also similar in the sense that I cut off the edges of the face, and you can still tell who he is. Using the elements of the face for storytelling, and my goal here is to show the explosive radiance of this character. Narrative in a single image. So I don't do comics as a rule. I'll try to put as many elements that lead the eye around in a single image. So I had the idea that George W. Bush looked like Mickey Mouse in Fantasia, and if you remember, Mickey puts on the hat of the sorcerer, and he gets into trouble because he doesn't know what the hell he's doing, creating all kinds of mayhem, and then he smashes the broom.
And that you equate to George?
Okay,
sure. You know.
This is the story of ISIS, if you think about it. So anyway, what I teach is how to direct the eye around a single image, to do it in one.
Kino.
Okay, Kino. I did just some preliminary research and finding photos and sketches and some finishes from some heroes of Argentinian graphics. And so I thought I would show a couple of pieces, and maybe you could tell me, not just South American artists, but also some Americans, to just give us a sense of how you see them and what they mean to you, and maybe some insight that we might not have if we were just casual visitors to their work.
So Kino is like our Schulz, you know. He was very much influenced by Schulz and also Steinberg. I think he's a very big fan of Steinberg. So he started doing like little graphic jokes, and eventually he created this strip that very much like Peanuts works with little kids, you know, living like in this world where the world of the grown-up world is taking to this little kids world. It's kind of like, you know, how Lucy analyzes, you know. But in the case of Mafalda, which is the strip, it was a way more political thing than Snoopy or whatever. It's kind of like Doonesbury plus Peanuts plus, you know, big-haired little girl. and to me, it was always like this, because this is from 1964, I think, till 1970 something. So it was right smack in the 60s, so there's all this reference to the Beatles or to the Vietnam War. And the cool thing is I learned to read books basically I started with Mafalda. It's how, you know, the Argentinians or Latin Americans start reading, and it's like a great first character to read, because you know, people underestimate very much what they give their kids to read, or now they even give them iPads, like, shut up, and put an iPad in front of their face. But they go like, reading My Little Pony, I don't care, you know. And so, and what you read as a kid, it's like the basis of all the books that you're gonna have to put on top of that. So if you're reading like My Little Pony, then good luck reading Faulkner after that, you know? But the cool thing about...
It could happen.
Yeah, it could happen, but it's more difficult.
It's a big jump, yeah.
It's like a unicorn, you know, suddenly doesn't appear in Faulkner for some reason. So, but with the cool thing about Mafalda was that it's this little kid that keeps on questioning the world of the grown-ups. Like, why, you know, why it's this Vietnam War? Why do you do this? Why my father does? Like, she's constantly like, you know, basically going like, you guys are morons. You know, how come you live like this? And from that, like, I realized that all this, some of these, there you go. And there's a different, like, archetypes, you know, like this little kid, Manolito, is kind of like a capitalist. He has like this little store, and he's very much into capitalism. He hates the Beatles. He hates, like, he has like a crew cut, and he's very, very, like, he's not the smartest kid, but he's very likable still. And then
very successful.
Yeah, not very successful, but he has like a marketing exploits and stuff like that, and it's very funny. And then Felipe is kind of like I really identified with Felipe, you know, because he was this shy kid who was in love with someone, kind of like the little red-haired in Peanuts, but he couldn't talk to her, and I was like, I am so this guy, and then he was very bad studying because he kept reading comics, and I'm that guy too, and so yeah, it worked like that, and this guy is actually, in my mind, one of those people that, like, I love all types of art, but there's a very few people that you're not more like a more intellectually amazing person for reading them, but you are a better person for reading them, you know, like, or like Chaplin, you're not a more cultured person, but you're a little bit better, or, you know, Lennon or Steinbeck, those guys that...
There's moral intelligence.
Yes, that they make you like a 0.74 better person if you read them. So Kino, to me, is up there. You know?
Fantastic. Thank you for that. All right.
And this is Oesterheld.
This is Hector German Oesterheld. This is a, not only is he a singular talent, but he also gives us a chance to see what collaboration is like in other cultures. We wouldn't have this here, I don't think. We're more on our own. But he produced things with other artists, two other artists, as I've been able to discern, all had to pay a price for their expressiveness and the great art they produced, it has everything to do with, I think, your tradition and where you come from. If you could talk about him. After him, I have slides of Brescia, and then Francisco Solano Lopez. So maybe you can tie them together for us?
Yeah, so Oesterheld was a writer. He was a script writer and also novelist. And in the 1950s, he created, like, you know, our most famous, what you would call now a graphic novel, of course, but those are some of his characters. But the most famous one is called The Eternauta, you know, El Eternauta. I think Fantagraphics is about to publish an English version, and I really recommend it because it was this amazing, like, science fiction 300-page story about, like, an alien invasion, you know, in Buenos Aires.
It's like a crossover book, right? It goes beyond graphic novel, and it's considered a high form of literature.
Yeah, it became like a very, very important book, and also like a prescient book of what ended up happening to Hector Oesterheld, who disappeared during the the dictatorship years. He and 4 of his daughters disappear. And the whole story of this alien invasion, like it's eerily, you know, paired to what happened to him and his family. Like, let's say, like our dictators were like evil aliens. And sadly, you know, we bred those evil aliens right in Argentina. But so it's one of those books that I grabbed when I was a kid, and I couldn't put down. I would end it and go right to the first page and start all over again. And it's this snowfall that happens in Buenos Aires where it doesn't snow, so it never snows like snow in Texas. And so there's this snowfall, and these guys are playing cards, and suddenly they're going like, oh my God, it's snowing. And as soon as they are going to go out, they see that people are dying on the street from just touching the snow. So they, you know, get stuck in there, kind of like a Robinson Crusoe thing, and then it develops from that. But and then Francisco Solano Lopez, who you mentioned before, was the artist that came up with this story. And I got to talk to him. He died a couple of years ago, but I got to ask him because in 2007 in Buenos Aires happened something that hadn't happened for 100 years, which is it snowed.
It did snow.
It did snow, and I asked Solano Lopez, like, what did you feel? Like, you've been living with this story over 50 years, and suddenly it snows, and you watch out the window, and you go like, oh my God, aliens! Like, you know, oh no, not again! And he told me something really nice. He was so happy to have been able to see that. Like, you know, he couldn't believe his eyes when he saw that it was snowing in Buenos Aires. And no aliens whatsoever. You know. Some politicians are kind of alieny.
It had special meaning. So,
of course, he also worked with Hugo Pratt. He worked with many amazing, and Alberto Brescia was amazing.
He was an amazing artist. We're going to look at his work in a second. What specific connection can you see between this book and his disappearance? Or do you think that there was some other thing that he did that crossed a political line?
He eventually
at
got.
That time?
He was always kind of a political, you know, artist, and did a lot of, you know, crossover. And he did, you know, work with like Che Guevara stories and stuff like that. And
he did a biography of Che.
Yes, and then his daughters were also like in the whole Montonero movement, which was like a left-wing Peronist movement in the 70s. Who were very much against first Isabel Perón, who, it's like a big, crazy, you know, the Argentinians around here are going like, yeah, it's as fucked up as it gets. You know, that our 70s were incredible. But you know, of course, in those years, musicians and artists and, you know, editors and whatever, just if they spoke their minds and they were against the regime, you know, they put their lives at risk. Yeah. I have a publisher down there who also is very famous for publishing Kino and Mafalda, called Daniel Divinsky, and he published this book in the 70s to teach kids how to count. So it was like this pages, you know, so it was a downwards countdown. So it was like 5 is the days of the, I don't know what, and 4 is whatever, and 3 and 5. And when he got to 0, it was a drawing like this, and it was red. So the geniuses at the, you know, junta dictatorial decided that he was trying to indoctrinate subversive 5-year-olds into the guerrilla. Like, you know, this is, we're gonna get like some creepy, you know, 5-year-olds with this guy. So they sent him to jail, and he had spent 7 months there, and then he had to move to Venezuela. So I am always like this is still kind of a very present wound in Argentina, you know, it's still very present. But I was very lucky not to live that like in my professional life. Like, I was 10 years old when democracy came back to Argentina, and we really learned, I think, that lesson. Like, we really, really learned that lesson. Like, also they went into a war with England, you know, so it was not the smartest, you know, tools in the shed, those guys, and they were really, really evil. So, you know, we just, we were very lucky that these guys and the most of them, and they're still being judged and sent to jail. And like Videla, which is the most horrific.
It's still
one,
going on.
He died in jail, so we learned from that.
And this is Brescia.
And that's Brescia. He's actually from Uruguay,
But he
so
was
if
from
there's any Uruguayan there, like it's
so
okay.
from Uruguay, moving to Buenos Aires.
Yeah, he worked a lot in Buenos Aires.
And he worked on the Che book. Yes.
Yeah.
But he was not exiled.
No,
Was
he was just.
Why? So this is interesting to me. How did he escape the pressures?
I think probably like fascists don't read comics. Could that be that?
This is from the Che book, right?
Like, yeah.
It's beautiful,
yeah,
right?
This is. I think that's actually his son.
This is his son did this.
Enrique Brescia.
Ah.
But maybe if someone there knows more, but
It is his son.
So, but.
Sorry.
No, it's fine.
I tried.
He was very proud of his son. But I once was talking with Guy Delisle, and asked him if he got into any trouble for doing Jerusalem, the book that he did. It's not, it's kind of leans more towards the side of Palestine than the Israel settlers. So I asked him if he had any problem with the right wing Israel, and he was like, no, nobody called me, nobody said anything. And we realized that they don't read comics, like right-wing people don't read that much comics.
But if Fox News got a hold of a copy and put it on,
oh my God.
then that would be the end of the show.
But those guys are geniuses.
Of course they are. All right. Is this more like what
That's
he did?
Alberto, yeah.
So very strong blacks.
Yeah.
And that leave out some drawing, but let the eye fill in.
A little gestalt there for you.
I think it looks like him.
Yeah,
Maybe it's
definitely
based on this. We're all doing self-portraits on some real level. This also?
This is also, I think, Enrique, or I think it's Enrique Brescia.
I'm going to change slides before I get into any more trouble.
And that's Solano Lopez, who did the Eternauta that you see there.
All right. He co-founded.
That's
he was the co-creator.
What he had to use not to get in touch with the deadly snow. That's what he used to go out there. Yeah. And
Did I get this right? Does this look like him?
And you know what? A sad story about this is all this. There's like a 300-page story, and all the originals were stolen from Solano Lopez. They disappeared from.
Destroyed, probably.
Not destroyed. Actually, Solano Lopez got invited to go to Italy to a show of all his originals that some guy from Italy magically had, and he was like, they stole that from me, but eventually the guys supposedly bought it in good faith.
So he saved them.
Yeah, but Solano never got them.
He never got them back. What a terrible story.
It's horrible.
Nobody got out of Argentina safely. But Lopez was he in exile? He fled to Spain, it says here. Am I right?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, okay. Munoz?
Well, is that Munoz? I don't think that is Munoz.
No, it's not?
It's another Munoz.
It's another Munoz.
That's the fun thing about Google,
I'm sorry. I don't know them. I'm just trying to be helpful. This is by him.
But that's Munoz, and this is a thing that breaks my heart. And one of the reasons I did the publishing thing is a lot of these amazing cartoonists publish their stuff in Europe, and they don't publish in Argentina, which is as fucked up as it gets for me. It's like we are creating this culture and then all the young artists in Europe get to know way better how to work with black and white. Like he's a big influence on Frank Miller and all those guys.
Frank Miller, yeah. You can see that, yeah.
And Spiegelman and all those guys are very much influenced by Jose, and we don't get to read him. We don't get to. This is Alex Sinner. I used to read them in Fierro magazine, but you couldn't go to a bookstore and buy that. And you can go to a bookstore in Barcelona or in Rome and buy this stuff, which is, I think it's horrible. I don't know why that happened exactly, but.
Do you go into any of these guys in your narrative classes?
Yeah, definitely part of Berkeley, especially with Morrison.
Oh yeah, that's.
It was a big deal.
So it gets passed on here. I love this.
That's Alex Sinner also. But their use of black and white. And this is Carlos
His
Nine.
Nine.
I love this guy. I'm kind of scared of him also. because he's really good. And he's kind of grumpy. And I always feel that he's going to berate me for not being better. You know, like, you should use watercolors better. You know, I'm sorry, Mr. Bisnino. But he's really good, yeah.
I'll bet you won't admit that he actually praised your work.
No, I don't think I...
You don't think so?
No, I don't think he did.
He's just kind of like in his world of draftsmanship.
He's just amazing, yeah.
I know a big fan of his is Peter de Sèvres, and you can see a big influence that he's had on Peter. Amazing use of pencil, and this looks like an oil paint, or pastel, sorry.
Pastels,
Yeah, just thoroughly wonderful. Great caricaturist and also colorist, and a pen and ink man. And it blows my mind too that you have publications that'll just run a beautiful drawing without having the need for some kind of a joke or a caption or wise guy comment. It's just, we all appreciate him, and what else can Nine do here, you know?
No, he's amazing, yeah.
Now, here's some non-South American artists that you may have been influenced by.
Definitely, yeah.
Very gay.
When I was a kid, there wasn't that much comics in Argentina. There was Mafalda, and then there was like very popular ones like Patoruzú and stuff like that, and Condorito, you know, for our Chilean friends. But Tintin was one of the ones that, for some reason, they got to Argentina, and I went crazy with that one. Like, I remember my parents got me Trip to the Moon, which was 2 volumes. And that's when I found out, for example, that in zero gravity, liquid goes like a ball. And that for me was better than Jurassic Park effect. I was like, my God, what? A ball? But why? This is so crazy. So yeah, but that's the cool thing about kids, that every now and then your brain explodes with, this is incredible. So that happened to me with Tintin.
But a drawing can do that to somebody, you know, and you say it was more vivid than if it were a 3D widescreen movie.
Yeah, for me it was
because
news.
your brain was taking it places.
That's the thing. For me, it was complete news when I realized that Hergé was a human being. That for me, Tintin was just there, and all these things happened to him, and then, you know, and also Kino, you know, this, when something is very well made, the author kind of disappears, and plus they have like this weird thing. Hergé is not a name, and Kino is not a name, and Liniers is definitely not a real name. But for some reason, you know, if it's well done, then Tintin exists on its own, and that for me is just as good as it gets.
That's the magic, because what we all want to do is to give this thing life, to have it live on its own, by itself, you know, unquestioned, you know. Norman Mailer once said in an interview, at the end of every sentence, I ask myself, is the perception there? And it blew me away when he said that. He's one of the great writers of his time, and he's worried about every sentence not being a stopper for the story, you know, not causing you to start to question the writing, but to actually keep driving you and let the book sort of go away.
That's
what he did.
What I love about it, and what you do with comics generally, is that because it's perceived, since a lot of kids read comics, it's perceived like it's not you're not doing that like an intellectual exercise. But what you are doing basically is just this stop drawing that doesn't move. It's like there, he's running, but he's stuck like that, and your brain moves him from one panel to the next. You know, that little white space, he runs from, and so your brain is. I once gave my father-in-law, he was very much into Second World War, like, you know, very interested in that, so I got, like, you know, I'm the son-in-law, like a cartoonist. I got like, this guy must hate me, you know. So I tried to give something to him that we could, you know, kind of connect. And since he loved, you know, he was interested in the Second World War, I gave him Maus to read, you know. Like, nobody doesn't, you know, flip out when they read Maus. So I gave him Maus. And a week later I went like, wow, so how did that go? Was that fun, Federico? and he went like, you know what? I didn't know how long I had to look at each drawing. Like, I would read the thing, then I would look at the drawing, then I don't, like, it's enough? Can I go to the next drawing? Like, because he hadn't developed, like, the thing that we do unconsciously of going from one place to the next, to the next, to the next, and moving the story
He was
that way.
unaccustomed to the form.
He was completely, he had never read comics.
Yes.
So that's,
So
imagine how much he admired me.
It confused him.
In the end, he liked me very much. So
We have Mouse coming up at some point.
Okay.
And here's Charlie Brown.
And Charlie Brown, that floored me when I discovered Charlie Brown.
What was it about this strip that made an impression? Were you very young at that time?
Yes, it was very. Somebody gave me like to learn English, also like a teacher or someone, like one of those tall ones, not the one that you get like the strip, but they kind of
Sunday.
Yeah. And it was just the drawings were so clear and so kind of not like what we saw about Westerheld, the other thing I read, all detailed, but this like the eyes is just like a tiny script. And that for me was such a clear and beautiful thing. And of course you started seeing Peanuts before you got to the you saw Peanuts like in T-shirts and stuff like that, and then you realize it's a comic strip. But there was something so weird about its humor. It wasn't like jokey, haha at the end, plop, whatever. It was like these sad things,
And psychological. Too.
Yes, I once did like something horrible. And I will now confess, I do these strips for a newspaper in Barcelona, which is like a really weird newspaper. So I like the weirdest, most horrible ideas that I can come up with. I publish them there. So I did one that said like when Charlie Brown gets to be a teenager, and he's just hanging, he doesn't. Oh yeah, I'm sorry, but look at that poor guy. He went through that all his infancy. Like no Valentines, never kicking that freaking ball. I read once an
Makes
interview,
sense.
yeah.
Makes total sense.
I don't think he's going to have a very good adolescence, this guy. So, and I read once and it made me sad that he didn't do it. But like one of the last interviews with Schulz, he got like emotional, and he said like really on TV. Maybe you can see it in YouTube, and he goes like, "Oh, that poor kid never got to kick the ball," and like
never once.
Yeah,
in all the strips.
Like
it would have violated some great order in the universe.
You think
if
maybe
Charles
the last
Schulz allowed
strip,
him.
it would have been nice, like, and go. But
that would have been a good obit
he
strip.
really kind of
done
broke
that
up
in
at that moment. It was like for me it just made me feel goosebumps. He was like really sad for the kid, but he couldn't make him kick
But
the ball.
you could feel sorry for all these. Like it's a tragic strip.
Yeah, it's
the
Hamlet.
sad commentary on how psychologically fucked up we are.
And
we
this
go
is
back
just
in time.
pure beauty.
Okay.
For me, it's just
so this is a man who's influenced everybody.
everybody.
And not too many people know he was African American.
Was he? I didn't know that.
He was.
Are there the
George
birth
Harriman.
papers? The birth papers?
Huh?
Did Donald Trump unearth the birth papers? Like,
Looking
for the Obama papers, suddenly, oh my God, George Harriman was from here. Okay.
No, we have to take the books out of the library now. Crazy Cat, if you haven't ever heard of Crazy Cat, hear about it. And Fantagraphics has quite a few of them out. They are works of genius. And I think maybe the first surreal, one of the first surreal strips, and appeared every day for many years in the 1900s, 1910s, 1920s. What kind of influence was it for you?
For me, the number one, firstly, like just the ink work. I think it's always beautiful. I like this, the how do you say, the sketchy things that you can see in Robert Crumb also. Like we love now every cartoonist first from this and then from Crumb. We love the sketchy thing.
But smart sketching.
But and then how he treated each page as like you could do anything. Like in MACANUDO. I have this like white space. I never go like, oh, I have to go like 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's it. And this guy, every page was designed. Was like, this was here, this was here, then it was here, then it was here. And everything was playful, and everything made sense on the whole page. Like, there are some pages that are amazing, just how obsessive this guy must have been just doing like, a perfect combination of color here, black here. So
and you don't see it here too, but maybe with that tree, right? But he would design buildings and moons and skies and clouds to fit in the space, and it didn't matter that they were his own version of everything.
Yeah, and then that's
Totally-
another thing. That's another thing I discovered when I was a kid, or when I was trying to be a cartoonist. And you go like, I can't draw cars. I like suck at drawing cars. My cars are horrible, because cars in the real world right now are horrible. So I
They're
go
not
like,
interesting.
But then I saw this one thing on TV, and this guy was talking to another cartoonist, and the guy went like, yeah, you can create your own car, you know, why would you? And this guy created trees and created like, you know, everything he invented just, and to me it's a very jazzy thing.
Jazzy. And also, there's a New York quality in the sense that the dialogue, the text, is written in broken English, crazy the way people in New York, since we're from all over the world, are speaking like this to each other. How I got out, maybe found the thing, and he just celebrates broken English and fanciful English throughout all of Crazy Cat. And Crazy Cat also is sometimes a boy and sometimes a girl, and we never really know.
Well, Olga is always sometimes.
And it's very violent too, which we love.
And the whole thing about love and pain is just perfect.
It's a very sophisticated, and then of course we get. I'm sorry for the pixelated.
Yes, but we know who this.
We know
guy
what this is.
You know.
All right, and you have a story. I
I
think.
have a weird story with this guy because I a few years ago, like 2004, I was in this trip in Berlin. So I started like I had to do something for the. They invited a lot of artists to Berlin, right? Like artists, like, you know, people who do installation and stuff like, you know, just sculpture. There was this woman who like used dead pigs and, you know, art. And I was stuck in the middle of those guys. And each one had to do something, how Berlin influenced you as an artist in your stay. And I was the first one to have to do my presentation, so I had been just one day in Berlin. So like no influence whatsoever. I just, you know. They were showing like Baywatch in German. I don't know if that impacted me, but I was like, yeah, that's not enough.
Baywatch?
Yeah, they were like David Hasselhoff, and like, you know, he was very happy.
The best of American culture, right there.
Yeah. And so I decided, well, I will draw myself as a rabbit, because, you know, it's artsy. It's artsy, and rabbits are, you know, are right in right now. So I started doing like this, my diaries in this with this alter ego of the rabbit, and then, but like, you know, maybe a couple of hours after I did it, I went like, oh my, Matt Groening does this thing in Life in Hell where he draws himself, and he also draws himself as a rabbit. Oh fuck, you know. And then I went like, what? He will never find out. You know? He already has enough money, you know. I don't think he's.
And you're all the way down there.
I'm down there in
Yeah,
Argentina.
all
This
the way.
guy's like, you know, in a big yellow mountain of whatever mansion he has. So I went like, okay. So I kept doing this rabbit, and one day my sister calls me, Juanita, on the phone and says like, hey, Ricardo, this is in Buenos Aires. It's not like we're living. Yes, Juanita. Do you know Matt Groening, the guy that made The Simpsons? I go like, yeah, sure. Well, he's dating my friend Agustina, and he says he wants to meet you. And I went like, oh, Juanita, are you the drugs, man? What are you doing? What are you? Are you okay? Do you need me to go fetch you? No, really. And so it turns out this guy actually married the friend of my sister, Agustina, and they have a nice son, Nathan, and so I had to come clean. He came to Buenos Aires, invited me to you know, to eat or whatever, and I came like, hey, Matt. You know, the rabbit thing. You're gonna laugh. Please don't sue, please. But he was very, you know, that's something that generally happens on the horrible world that is Twitter. That there's this Twitter police, and they go like, hey, you're ripping off from Matt Groening, you suck, Liniers, I'm gonna destroy you. And you go like, dude, relax. But generally when you meet the guy, they go like, yeah, that's great, man. I have made a lot of money from that, you know, good for you. I love a
Well, Warner Brothers could have got upset about this, you know.
Nobody cares.
There have been a number of
That's the
rabbits.
nice thing about Argentina. I like in MACANUDO, I would draw everyone. I have like Hello Kitty there, and Star Wars. I don't give a fuck, you know. Yeah, I know eventually my poor editor is going to have to, you will receive a lot of, you know, Disney mails at some point. Cease and desist, you know, the evil empire is coming to and you're going to have to be Luke Skywalker or Princess Leia, as it will. I will be your Luke to your princess. Yeah. And
So he was fine.
so he was very happy, and generally that happens. It happens to me now. Every now and then someone comes and you see that you influence them, and you never go like, "Oh, he's stealing from me." I go like, "Man, that's nice." Somebody read my stuff and went like, "Hey, I can do that." All right.
Your rabbit has nothing to do with his. I'm sorry, everybody.
No, his
we all drew a rabbit right now.
Money.
You would be drawing your own rabbit.
Yeah, that's the thing. It doesn't make there's now with the Twitter thing, you get to tell civilians that this actually happens, that two people can have the same idea.
Yeah, that happens.
Because I write something on Twitter and 25 people make the same joke, like, and you go like, you know, it happens.
It's very
really
disheartening.
weird when someone is the same idea and the same grammatics and the same drawing and the same thing, and like, if you have like 5 points of, you know, connection, then it's kind of weird. But generally, like, the same idea, relax, it happens.
Like today, if you post your ideas on Facebook or Twitter, like Chris Christie as the Hindenburg blowing up, 5 other artists did the same thing.
Yeah.
And in the past, if they were like someone's in Louisville and someone's in Alaska, you wouldn't know that.
That's the thing. Somebody wrote like Chris Christie, Hindenburg, and boom.
But it's a
That
great
guy's a nice
It's a
guy.
great idea. Chris Christie is the Hindenburg. Anyway, another big influence on everybody.
Yes,
this
on
is a
everybody.
seminal book.
This one blew my mind. I was like, I remember reading it. My parents came on a trip and they came back and got me these 2 books. And I finished it, and I wanted every other book that I ever read to be kind of like this style of book. Yeah. And there was not other book like that. Yeah. And now there's like thousands of books like that. But that back then it was the only one that destroyed you and floored you, and it was perfect comics, and it did something that you couldn't do with movies, and you couldn't do with literature. It did something new and
changed the world.
And then it's the big story, like the Holocaust. Are like the big human story, and supposedly cartoonists couldn't talk about important stuff because it's cartoons, you know. No Holocaust for you. And, and this guy, and this guy is, for me, it's like the you know, that little triangle in the Dark Side of the Moon, that the being comes like that, and then there's the triangle, and then it goes like that. And so that book is that. Yeah. And like right now, for me, like Hergé is amazing, and Harriman is amazing, and Winsor McCay is amazing. But all those guys had to do either humor or adventure.
Yeah.
And generally aimed for a young male audience. And that changed. Like, you know, now every cartoonist has the same freedom that every literary, you know, artist had, or every movie artist had throughout the whole history of movies.
Right.
Nobody told like Luis Buñuel, no, that's not cinema. Everybody was like, oh, that's very interesting. Oh, that's great. But for us, for some reason, was not. No. You stay with your little jokes. And what happened was that if you give like a big mass of artists absolute freedom, happens what happens now. You know, you get Chris Ware, and you get Joe Sacco, and you get, you know, Marianne Satrapi, and you get everything is suddenly this like big peacock of a thing. You have everything, and you know, you just want to go in there and have fun.
And that wound up influencing all the other arts, films, and written novels are written now sometimes as graphic novels. So it really is a kind of a liberating moment, like when some great artist comes along and shows everybody a new way to think about things. And then we have this rabbit, okay.
Yeah, that's a Matt Groening original. No, yeah, I can't play guitar, but I can draw myself playing the guitar, which is like the next best thing, I guess.
I think that's better than playing the guitar. And this is the last piece.
Oh, I love this guy.
This is Patrick, who was a an illustrator who then became a cartoonist. He was like, you know, the rest of us fighting for freelance jobs for a long time, New York Times, so on, and then realized that he had that touch, he had that vision. He found his characters and then became very successful with Mutts.
Yeah, the first news I got of him was a book that I bought on Crazy Cat. He did like this book on Crazy Cat, like in the early 90s or something like that. I bought it for Crazy Cat, and then Patrick McDonald, okay. And then these things started popping up, you know? And for me, it was like a perfect strip that synthesized like all the early strips, like the Cliff Sterrett and Harryman and
right.
all that stuff, plus kind of a feel or drawing, kind of like a Watterson and then like old timey things.
He combined the old and the new.
And he used to do this thing in the Sundays that he would grab something from like graphic history. It could be like the Nevermind the Bollocks, or it could be like an image from like Gustav Klimt or whatever, and he would put his characters there. And I was like, oh, that's such a good idea. And of course I did it. I put my penguins in Abbey Road or whatever. Like, what I'm saying is steal from, people you like. That's the most fun.
Somebody once analyzed Mozart and found that there was 10% of originality. Culture is take some, leave some. Add, subtract. And you shouldn't feel bad about it. And a lot of young artists feel guilty, or they're condemned by people for imitating another artist. And I think at the beginning, especially, it's absolutely A-okay to do that.
Yeah. But I want to say, it's like we were talking before, that we are very different and it was, I like what you said of you being an optimist, because your work and my work, they have a very different approach, in the sense that you are like a satirical, showing, okay, it's a little bit of everything. I have horror vacui, I don't know if it shows, but so how, if you're a political satirist, you are constantly showing all these horrible human beings, being horrible basically, and having fun with that, and so it's sometimes perceived as very pessimistic, and my stuff is kind of optimistic, because it's an optimistic strip. And what happened was I started doing this strip in 2002. In 2001 we had like a horrible crisis, economic crisis. Of course, there was also 9/11. There was also like the new millennium, so there was like this feeling that the world was ending. And I remember the newspaper as being like a horrible, pessimistic, we're all gonna die thing that you would open and say like, okay, Bush invading, blah, blah, Argentinians, the markets, everything sucks, and the world is over. And then you go, oh, okay, people screaming and going, we lost everything. Oh my God, we're all gonna die. I was like, wait, because after I put down the newspaper, like my wife was there, she was, very nice, hey, hi, Angie, and then like my friends and my family was there, and they were all very nice, and like a little bird flying through the window. I went like, wait, like the big things in this planet for some reason are horrible, but the little things are kind of nice, they're kind of. So I decided that I was going to do my strip, like focusing on those like tiny things that if you get too much into the big picture, you might miss that, being alive for 80, 90, 100 years is so much fun.
I think we're going to need more of that as we deal with very big issues. I think people in Texas right now, for example, probably could use this book.
Well, is Perry still the governor there?
No,
Where do
somebody
you get the
even
Texans?
worse.
Well, Nathan, where do you get these governors?
I don't know.
He's a refugee. He's a fugitive. No, it's just a lot of hypocrisy and willful ignorance. But we don't have to go into that right now. But I do think intelligent evaluations and discussions of the little things of life get us through. And it's a great gift. So
that's
we're grateful to this little guy here.
Yeah, my little elf.
Oh, you have this. I'm sorry. The little
let's see.
key on that.
Bling. This is my first strip that I did before doing MACANUDO. I used to have it was a weekly strip. It was called Bonjour. You know, this was going to be the cover of a book that never was. But, so it had penguins and then one guy blowing the trumpet that I picked from somewhere. I copied it from some old, thing. And it was just me trying to, to call attention. It was like nobody was, this is 2000 more or less. It was impossible to be a cartoonist in Argentina, and it still is very hard. There's only like 3 or 4 or 5 spots in the 2 big newspapers, and that's it. And if you get to be in the newspaper, then it means that people who don't read comics will read you, and you will get more or less known, and then you get to sell a few books. But when you're starting and you see that Kino and Maiten and all these amazing artists are doing it, and you go like, mine suck, oh my God. I'm never gonna get there. But what I decided to do was, okay, I will not get there by quantity. I will not get by quality. I will get there by quantity. So I started working like a madman, like doing like very bad, crappy, strips, but like hundreds, like blah 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 blah. That
Can I just interrupt for a second?
Yeah.
Did you notice as you did that?
Yeah.
Because to me, this is the key to education in art. Quantity. Did you notice you're getting better?
Yes.
You noticed.
And the nice thing about this book is
Very important point.
You see me discovering stuff. You see me like at the beginning. Let's see. Here are some of the strips. These were more or less at the end of the run. At the beginning, it was just one strip, and of course, just one strip per week for me was too little. So there, I decided to do the two floors. I could be like more or less okay in the first one, but in the second one I could be really stupid. And I basically stole from Tony Millionaire. I love Mackies, and I went like, oh, that makes sense. And I sent to Tony Millionaire because it was the birth of internet, so you get sometimes all these big things, and you go, oh my God, Tony Millionaire is in there. So I got the email, and I sent him and said, I'm so sorry, Mr. Millionaire. I don't think it's his real name. I'm so sorry, Mr. Millionaire, but I'm stealing your idea of, and he went like, oh, I stole that from Crazy Cat, don't worry. So I did these things and I had fun, but I really tried to kind of, first I was on this battle with the newspaper for them to run it bigger, to run like so I would do like all those like very detailed drawings that I didn't have an idea, and even for them to be a joke, because the Beatles one is just a drawing. But I went like, oh, come on, you can run big.
That's very labor intensive. This is hours and hours,
yeah, that
isn't it?
That was.
And this feels a little crumb-like.
And those are my friends, that's Harriman and Hergé and Schultz and Kino there. So
you're thinking about R. Crumb's blues portraits?
Yes,
a little
probably,
bit.
Yeah, definitely. So I was just a big fan. Just like when you're a kid and you draw, Jim Morrison or whatever. I just kept doing that.
Yeah.
And the guy under there is annoyed at me. And this one I did on September, because I remember doing this. I used to hand in my strips on Tuesday, and I used to draw them on Tuesday. And September 11, it was a Tuesday, so I remember waking up, watching all this horrific thing on TV, and I had to do a strip that day, and it was just, I remember it's not here, but it was one of me going to, pleading with Mr. Bush just not to nuke everything, because he was like, yeah, I'm gonna, because eventually he did. So he didn't pay much attention to my strip, I guess. And then there was one beneath that said like, oh, this is horrible. But so it was just a thing to do. And then MACANUDO happened. I got into La Nacíon newspaper, there are 2 very big newspapers in Argentina, Clarín and La Nacíon. And just getting there was, like a big, and again, it's, all these strokes of luck are that. It's just a stroke. It can happen to you, it can happen to you, it can happen to you. And maybe it will never happen to you. You don't know. It's just a stroke of luck. But in order for you to, to be able to profit from that, you have to have done all the homework before.
In other words, good fortune favors the prepared
Exactly.
mind.
Because these guys went like, okay, do you have like anything to show? And I went like, oh, I have 60 here.
So
Boom.
happened.
Okay.
This is just to interrupt for a second to students. If you want something, if you want to be something, be that person now. Don't wait for permission from anybody. Decide right now that you are whatever it is that you want to be. When I was 14, I wanted to be a political cartoonist. 14, okay? I decided, and I don't know why, we have this in common. We, all of us who are professionals, we seem to have this in common. A belief that no matter how bad you were to start with, that you were going to get better. Where does it come from? I don't know. And why some people don't have it, I don't know. At 14, I decided I was going to do a cartoon every day. And believe me, they sucked. They're terrible. But at the time, I thought, okay, this one's a little better than the last one. And by the time I was 16, I was pro. I had taken my stuff to newspapers in Brooklyn, local newspapers. And I'm 16 years old, and I'm making $10 for each cartoon that got into the local Brooklyn newspaper. Give yourself permission. Put yourself on a program to do the work. Don't wait for somebody to tell you you can. But when the opportunity comes,
and
they're going to choose
the job
between,
offer.
Huh?
Don't wait for the job offer, like, you know.
Create the job.
Yeah, exactly.
Create the job. And I'm 60 years old, I'm still doing it. Most of my jobs come from exactly this.
I remember when I spent some time here in the year 2000, and I met this guy who's Jerry Robinson, who actually...
I met him, I know. And he was
imagine.
he was very famous here, yes,
so,
and a wonderful person.
Of course, I loved him completely, and when I met him, I was like, oh my God, you know. I went to his syndicate, and he actually bought some of my strips, you know, like 4 strips or something. I think he got me like a $60 paycheck or something like that. Signed Jerry Robinson, which I have it at home.
You still have
it? I just never, because I have the Jerry Robinson thing, you know. So it was worth at least $85 to me, you know. So it's also like really nice when you think, oh, maybe I can work from this. This is, you know, this one guy liked it. For me, it was always like the tiny good news. And it started in elementary school. You know, I did some comics on Star Wars, and my friend right next to me saying, hey, that's cool. That was excellent. And then when I was in university, I did some stuff for the university magazine, and they were like, they run it, and I went, wow, that's amazing. And every time that something like that happens, propels me to the next step. And I'm just, but I know I was as happy when I published the New Yorker cover as when I was when, you know, I finished the Star Wars thing when I was 10.
Because the door is opening.
Yeah.
And the younger you are, the more amazing it is when a door opens, you know. But tell yourself the good story. Don't dwell on the stuff that doesn't work. When you have some door opening, say, my God, look what happened. I'm gonna use that. I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna try that, you know. Success is more psychological than anything else, I think.
Yes, and also what happens if you have this thing inside, I don't know why some people get it, some people doesn't, but if you have this calling to do something, I was like, and here are my father and my mother to testify as to what a crappy student I was. Hi mom, it's her birthday.
He's not
my mother's
disagreeing.
birthday today, so happy birthday, mama. Feliz cumpleaños. She just turned 50. She looks amazing. So, but when I was, what happened was when I was studying, if you make me do something I really don't like to do that, and I'm like, oh. So I wasn't a very good student. And growing up, like I was, how do you say abago? Like I was a bum, you know? not a bum, but like lazy, thank you. I was extremely lazy. No? Yes? Yeah, okay. So I was like, you know, watching or BJ and the Bear and like that. And
BJ.
And I'm very old. And these kids are going like, yeah, BJ and what? That's like a porno? What's BJ? Well, it was a show, and I remember growing up and when I started studying, going like, well, whatever I'll be as a grown-up will be the lazy version of that. So if I'm a lawyer, I'll be like a lazy lawyer and people will go to jail because I was lazy, you know. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to do a thing. And then I went into advertising and I studied advertising. I was like, I'm gonna be a lazy advertiser. I'm gonna buy this. You know, women in scantily clothes. So, but then when I went like, oh man, I want to do something that I love, and then I realized, I remember that I love doing comics, and I went like, okay, I'm gonna go into this. And then it was like that moment in those RoboCop movies or Terminator movies that you go like, and suddenly it goes like, and RoboCop goes, and nothing moves RoboCop, you know, of his intent. He's going, oh, no. And I make a great impression of RoboCop. I think it's no. And so that was me. When I suddenly saw that I wanted to do comics, like nobody could move me. And I became like a force of nature, the absolute opposite of lazy. Like I was a workaholic. All these are like books that came out over the last, I don't know, 12 years. I printed like, I did like 30 books, something like that. I mean, 11 MACANUDOs, but like 20 other books. So I became like the opposite because if you have this thing inside of you, and I don't think everybody does, but you know, when you see like a sportsman that's amazing or like a director or an actor that's amazing, it's just that they are RoboCops. They are like Meryl Streep, imagine it's a RoboCop. She can't be stopped, you know, so they transform into all these tiny characters. And the other thing that I did with MACANUDO, which is in every art form, I think you must understand all the laws that go into an art form, just to know which ones you should break. And because if you go then by all the rules, you'll just be like a watered down version of the guy right before you. You have to understand there's this one thing I should do. This I will not do what they say. Fuck them. Like Picasso did that, he grabbed, why not time into paintings? Paintings are like a thing, like one moment, let's do many moments. And then you get cubism, and then everybody freaked out. And those guys generally give the rest of the artist the permission to go a little bit further, and Fellini did that, and I don't know, like all those guys that suddenly change everything, and then movies change or books change. So what I think, the only thing that I really think I did different with MACANUDO was that I didn't do a one type of humor. Like I didn't just do this type of this, like you can find there like absurdist humor, sweet humor, observational humor, political humor, that just auto-destructive humor, whatever comes through my mind. I don't care that people, and at the beginning it was very confusing, and when people don't understand what you are doing, it's not, if you tell someone a bad joke, they go like, yeah, it's okay. But if you tell them a joke that they don't understand, they go like, fuck you, man, what's your fucking problem? And they're like, really, I got some really angry people reading my stuff, and it's just a little kid blowing dandelion. Come on, chill out.
So was there a time when your stylistic shifts needed to be explained to an editor?
Yeah, well, I was lucky with that, because it's not like TV, where like in 10 seconds you have to be super successful. So that in TV you got like this super ninja warrior American, I don't know, crazy shows that you have here. But in this thing, once they hired me because they liked the 30 strips that I showed them, and Maitena, who's a very famous cartoonist in Buenos Aires, kind of championed me, so they just wanted her to be happy, I guess. And once they hired me, I think they stopped reading my stuff. He was like, they ran it, whatever. Penguins, fine. Little girl, I don't care. It's not like here. And I really think that freedom of them not going nuts. At some point, somebody said to me, well, if you don't put a lot of, punchlines in the end, maybe people will get angry and will fire you, But if you wanted to do them like that, we have no problem.
But there wasn't a syndication down there.
But that's the thing,
Was there?
and
That's a big difference between
what I was
maybe
saying,
the freedom that you have.
I was saying before about how this amazing thing happened after Mouse with the graphic novels. With the daily strips, this country has like withered, like suffocated, I think, this art form that I love, and it's as American as jazz, you know, or blues or whatever. And the syndicate, I once talked with Dan Piraro, who does Bizarro many years ago, and he told me that the stuff that he could, I mean, there was stuff that the serious friends were doing that they couldn't do on a daily strip, that would be too far out. Like, it's okay for Joey to do something, but we can go as far as Joey. You know, that's crazy, Joey. I mean, he goes like, oh, wow, you know. So that thing, plus the obsession with continuing old strips by another author, which to me that's like nonsense. That's like hiring something like, hey, do Hamlet too. You know, like, we love Shakespeare. That sold many books. Yeah, it's more or less the same thing. You know, Sterrett is the only one that could do thimble theater. You can, like, there were very good artists that did Popeye after Sterrett, but it's just not Sterrett. No. And the same with Blondie, and the same with all these characters, they keep alive, like,
Blondie is
not on my watch. You know, like in ER, please don't die, and somebody's there going like, it's dead, man. Blondie's dead. No, not on my watch. You're going to keep running Blondie till everybody dies. And what happens then is you don't have space for new guys, for new voices, for something weird or different.
So that we're talking about the place where a piece of art becomes a piece of business.
Yeah, we were very lucky that
a corporate
said,
entity.
like, okay, let's keep doing Calvin and Hobbes. Who wants to do Calvin and Hobbes? That would have been horrible. Or Gary Larson, or, you know, Bloom County.
Or in the case of Peanuts, it just kept getting rerun because there were 50 years or something like that.
Yes, but I understand that at least it was the original.
The original.
But I think that is finally, I once had a meeting in, I think it was United Media, the syndicate. They called me in 2007, many years ago, like, we want to see your stuff. We've heard about you. And I was like, I told my wife, we are saved. We are finally going to have money. This is like American money. This is like the real thing, man. This is not Argentina. Yeah, this is like...
The ship has come in.
So we were living in Montreal. We came to New York, and we went into this huge building. Like, you know, I'm like, Angie, this is corporation, man. This is like, like I didn't care about my scruples or anything. I was a whore at that moment, so I would have said yes to anything. Like, I wanted money. I'm in it for the money.
That's all it took for you to get rid of your scruples?
Yeah, just the feeling that just I saw like a Peanuts.
It doesn't take long.
No,
just
no.
like scruples,
I saw a Peanuts statue, and I went like, okay, yeah, this is going to be excellent, Angie. These people are spending money on statues. So we got into this meeting, and there was very nice people and very smart people, and they were like looking at my stuff, going like, well, sure. And turning pages, going like, and I was like, oh, this is not going very well. And then someone said like, okay, well, you know, your stuff is kind of all over the place. I went like, yes. That's why it's interesting, because you don't see from one strip to the next, you don't see what's going to happen, and then it's a surprise, and then it's like a punch, you know, like boxing. I started like freaking out, going like hyperventilating because it's, and they was like,
it's a problem.
And then it's in color. Well, I like to paint, I'm sorry. And then you do elves. Yes, they're funny. And she said something that blew my mind. She said like, well, elves aren't like that. I'm like, what? Yeah, like, because this is exactly like, well, of you guys who have seen an elf.
This is exactly what an elf looks
in your house or your garden or your, like, you know, drug-induced dream. Maybe you realize that those aren't elves, but the cool thing is that they don't exist. So you can make them whatever you mind fly, I don't care, you know. So, and they are gay, they are little gay elves.
This is a gay elf.
So. Yes, I love my little gay elves. They were always gay from the beginning. I started drawing them, and I decided, well, let's make them gay, because I like gay people, so they're gonna be funny. So, but I never told
But she
anyone.
knew better. She knew better than you what a gay elf looked like.
Yes, probably she went like, we will need heterosexual,
Sexual elf, sorry.
But so I
an
started
issue.
doing these characters. Let's see if there's I don't think they will show up, but I did that one for. I did this one. My father is a lawyer, and growing up, he used to tell me something like, fatherly advice. You would say, like, Ricardo, the good thing about being a lawyer is it gets you prepared for anything. For just anything that can happen in your life. You're a lawyer, you're fine. So I did this little thing here, which I presented one day to my father. Hey, Dad. And he has it, in his office. Do you have it in your office yet? So I'm sorry, Daddy. So yes, I don't know what I was saying. Oh no, the little gay elves. So I just drew them gay because I like gay people. And what happened then in Argentina a few years ago? They also, I want to say, Enriqueta, the little girl, not gay. Only I never said the same way I never said that Enriqueta was heterosexual. I never told anyone the elves were homosexual, because why would you? I don't know. I don't care. And then one day in Buenos Aires, they were voting the gay marriage, and it was many years ago. And we were all I was very proud that we were so advanced in this. This was before we had popes in Argentina. So we were very advanced in this and very progressive, and I was so proud that we were doing something like that. And they actually invited me. I have a friend who's a musician, and while he plays, I draw, and we show that behind us. So they had us do a show in front of the Congress the night that they were voting the law. And somebody said in a newscast that, and they were protesting against the law, but this kid said something that was very, very smart. He said, this is an important law, and everybody should say where they stand for or against, because it's like a social transformative law. And so I thought it was the perfect time to get these guys out of the closet. So they came out of the closet, happily went to the Congress, and we got the law. Because of the gay elves,
when was that?
course.
When was that passed? What
I think
year?
it was 2010, probably. Maybe you guys know better.
That's impressive.
So there's Enriqueta. This is some stuff that I do for. Yes, I'm that. These are cover records. I did some covers from some artists and some musicians. That's Kevin Johansen, my friend. He's born in Alaska, but he's Argentinian, Alaskan. He's like the only Alaskan that will ever be nominated for a Latin Grammy. So he has that to his name. And so I did this cover. Then I realized I'm doing a cover with a Zeppelin. I am doing Wild with the Tongue. It's like I'm going to do one with 4 guys crossing the street. I don't have that much of an imagination.
No.
Yes.
I see that's a problem with you.
Yeah. I went like, whoa.
I feel sorry for you. Yeah.
These are some of the other books that are not, MACANUDO. Some of them are for books for kids.
It's so free, the variety of style. He's free, and my students are here. I'm always saying, be free.
Yes.
I say that to everybody.
But that's the fun thing about being
Get
an
out of the
artist.
box. Get out of the box.
That's the fun thing. You get to do whatever you want. I remember.
You get to do whatever you want if you don't listen to the blue meanies who are going to tell you, like the syndicate. You could have made a choice. You could have made some kind of a deal where you say, all right, I'll give you a homogenized script.
Let's do all
and then
penguins. And boom. And I would hate penguins.
And you would hate penguins.
And I like penguins. I don't want to hate them.
So you preserved the soul of those penguins.
So the thing with I remember when I started doing my shows with Kevin, I can go really stupid in those shows. Like I will dance, I will perform like strange, erotic dance for the women, and at some point I went like, maybe I shouldn't be doing this, because all my heroes in comics are like, you don't see Art Spiegelman going like, yeah, So maybe I shouldn't do this.
He
And
does
then
that all the time. You don't know that?
Yes, but then I realized
He does it in a synagogue, though,
wanna,
so you don't see that.
Yes, I've seen him going. But I realized I am not doing this to be Art Spiegelman or Kino or whatever. And I was having so much fun dancing, for the ladies, and some of the guys also. And so here are some of the other things I do. Sometimes are autobiographical, because now we all like to do these things where we kind of experiment with our lives and see what happens. Some are kids' books, some are Charlie Chaplin homages. Let's see. Some are just, using your daughters to make money. Basically, this is the big wet balloon that I did with Françoise Moulis, the one before this one. And I was having problems like coming up with a story for her. And she wanted to do a book all with Henrietta comics, but I was going to do MACANUDO with Enchanted Lions, and I thought let's do something for you. And since she liked Henrietta, which is a little girl with a cat, I went like, I will show her like a little boy with a dog. I don't know, And then one day I saw my two daughters playing in the rain, and Clementina was like 3 years old, 2 years old, only getting into 3, and Matilda was 5. And the way they went out into the rain was very different. Like Matilda went like, boom, ran out in the rain and started like, yeah, woohoo. Like she was like in Woodstock, like, yeah. And Clementina was like, what the fuck, man? Like she didn't curse, but she thought curse. What the fuck? What is this? Apocalypse, I have no idea. And suddenly I realized that there's a good idea for a story there, like a sibling story, and Matilda was trying to get her to go to play. And eventually they wanted to come back because they were cold, and I was like, no, stay there, I'm inspired, Daddy, we're cold, I don't care, But, so I made a lot of money with this book also.
So, a good reason to have children.
And then, of course, the New Yorker. Those are people from the New Yorker.
So you say the New Yorker, and
yes. If you say New Yorker, they go like, they are mentioning us. It's like Batman. This is the bad signal for the New Yorker people.
It's Francois calling.
It's Francois. So this is one of those things that you just never plan for, because especially if you live in Argentina, that's like the Everest. You don't go like and buy some backpack and I'm going to the Everest, bye everybody. Especially me, I couldn't go up like a hill. So this just is one of those things where they opened the door. We had like the little Indiana Jones moment. All my movie references are very old. I'm sorry for the young people. But Indiana Jones was a very old movie with Harrison Ford, who's very old right now. But there's this moment in Indiana Jones where a door opens and he goes through the door and the fedora hat falls and he grabs the hat and the door closes. He was just there and, got that hat. And I was standing like a moron, like, I did the book for Françoise, so she went like, okay, Ricardo, would you like to meet? I was, yeah, sure. Okay, well, come to the office. And I went to the office, he gave me like an address, and I went to the office to talk about the book, The Big Wet Balloon. And she, suddenly I go like, wait a second. What? He said like the New Yorker, gigantically, when I was going in, and I went, oh yes, she works in the New Yorker. Oh, the office, Emma Moore, okay, like selfie, right now. Nobody's looking. And I got in, and we started talking about The Big Wet Balloon, and then she went like, well, you should send us some sketches for the cover of the magazine. And my brain went like, everything like exploded, and things were like flying around. I was remembering stuff from my youth. It was like I was having a Proustian experience, like, wow! And on the outside, I went like, yeah, sure, no problem. I could send something, I don't know. And so I just, started sending stuff, and then she liked this idea of and then I realized how cool it is to work with a good, editor, because a lot of the ideas, she hones them.
Oh, yeah.
She gets stuff out of you that's way better than
she's
your
not just an art
idea.
director. She's an editor as well.
For example, for the one in the middle, they send like a generic, you know, like, we need, dear illustrators of the world, we need a cover for the New Yorker. Send us ideas. And you go like, I want to send something because, you know, I want to do the homework, but they, you know, they must get like some pay, guys like that. So I did like very fast when Obama lost or the Democrats lost the midterm elections. I did a very fast of an elephant sitting on top of Obama's head. Like he was like, an elephant on his head. Send it. The cool thing about the New Yorker is whatever doodle you make, then right up there, like the New Yorker, and it gets really good very fast. For some reason you have the New Yorker. Oh, this is great. So I send it, and to my surprise, they went like, yeah, we could do that. Let's do something. Put the elephant in the Oval Office. So I did another one where I put the elephant in the Oval Office. So I didn't need the face of Obama. So I just shot the elephant on the desk, and Obama under it, like, blown. And I sent it. And then they sent it back and said, like, it's a little strong. And then I realized from the drawing that it didn't look like the elephant was sitting on top of Obama. It looked more like Obama was penetrating the elephant with his head, you know? It was like the two hands, and he was right up there, you know? Like, and, you know, the New Yorker is a, you know, a decent magazine, I guess. They were like, let's not do the President of the United States penetrating an elephant with its head thing just yet. So I sat him there like a kind of in a waiting area, you know, tiny Obama. And that was fun. I was very sad that, you know, that Democrats lost that election, but then I was very happy. I was like, well, okay, if I get to do a New Yorker cover, go Republicans.
Satire loves bad news, you know.
Well, let's see what else. Oh, this is interesting. This is scary also, as much as it is interesting. Down there you see my friend Kevin Johansson, and I used to do this thing where I painted this big canvas that basically became the part of the show. And every now and then we do something, and Kevin calls me and says, like, Ricardo, I have this great idea. You know that photograph of John and Yoko in you know, protesting the war, you know, the bed piece? And he was still saying the sentence that I realized that I was going to be Yoko. You know, like there was no way I was going to be John in this scenario. Because he's the musician, you know, he's Bart, I'm Milhouse, I understand, it's fine. So we did that wonderful, I kind of look more like, I don't know, Demis Rousseau's, or I don't know, like, I don't know, I don't look like Yoko that much, I think. But, you know, and the nice thing about that one is we did a very big show in Buenos Aires in a place called Luna Park, which is like our Madison Square Garden, so it's huge. We did this show, and they used that as a poster, and they did like a giant thing in Avenue Córdoba. It was like a 3-story high thing of that photograph, and I sent my father a note saying, like, dear daddy, like a little letter, no? Dear daddy, this is your son. You will be very proud to find that I am in a very big poster in Cordoba, Avenida Cordoba, cross-dressed as a little Japanese woman, pop icon of the 80s, and I'm sorry. But you were very proud, weren't you? Like, of course, he was like, he always knew one day my son will make it as a Japanese cross-dresser. And
Looks a little bit like Kim Kardashian to me.
yeah, also like a horrible Kim Kardashian, probably, yeah. And the other one, of course, still ripping off of these poor Beatles. It's like a dyslexic, you know, half Abbey Road, I guess, because we're going the other way around. We dressed as mariachis because it's on a record that we did in Mexico, so we did like it's live in Mexico, so we are so complex that we thought Mexico, mariachis, okay. And then we got to spend a whole morning in 9 de Julio, which is like our main, you know, with what we realized is in Argentina, if you're dressed as a mariachi, people will scream at you horrible things from cars. Like, you know, they see you as a mariachi and go like, fucker, you know. And so I would get all these people going, yo, moron. Yeah, thank you, yes, I know. So this something that mariachis must know in Buenos Aires.
This photo was for an album?
For an album called Vivo en Mexico,
Okay.
which it was a lot of fun, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So,
and here you are doing a live
again, all things
painting?
that Art Spiegelman
Would never do.
Would never do. But maybe, you know.
Maybe secretly he does.
He does. He does amazing stuff.
Late at night.
And
That's so cute. Look at that.
I want to run that by like in a supermarket and freak the machine out. Like, what the fuck? I don't know. You know, $1 billion. I don't know.
I think we can do a couple of questions. We're running a little late, so if we want to do just a couple of questions from the audience, that would be great. Yes.
Yes, sometimes when you do the New Yorker, they send some titles. Like the first one, strap hangers. I have, you know, the ones that are, I have never heard that word in my life. They went like, it's called strap hangers. Okay, whatever you want.
I remember all of them. I remember those 3.
Yeah, but the elephant in the room was, I told him like, maybe it's the elephant. It doesn't work exactly because the elephant in the room is something we shouldn't be talking about. But it's right there, but nobody talks about.
I thought it was a great film.
Everybody, yeah, but it worked. And the third one's called the hipster stole. That one I came up with. Yeah, I was happy with that one. The title thing with the New Yorker it's fun because you get to like do all the, and it's not right there. You know, like in the comics they put like, but in the cover you have to search for the title and it's a tiny new joke. Yeah.
I think at the bottom.
So thank you. Yeah,
Anybody else?
Yes, my Instagram is fascinating. It's I was like extremely lucky just chronologically because you know I started doing these things and when I did Bonjour, nothing of this existed. It was like Hotmail and you know, and then MySpace appeared for a while and I was like, what is this? And then like all this like an army of beautiful young human beings started grabbing my stuff and putting it all over the internet. Like and I really like that. I really like every drawing I do, and I don't know if my publishers are very happy or not. She's happy, she's cool. But everything I do, I kind of put up on the internet because it's, you know, I think it's, I do it for people to see it, and then if they like it, they will buy the book because I love having books. So I have no problems with that. Also, we have heard artists throughout the ages going like, you know, imagine no possessions, man. Like, cool, man. This is like free love for everyone and everything. And then suddenly Napster appeared, and the guys from Metallica were like ballistic, going like, hey, no, they're stealing from us. I want all my money, blah, blah, blah. And they were crazy. And then you go like, hey, man, weren't we all like nice hippies? Like, how much money do you need? Metallica guy, drummer, you know, you play the drums. You be happy that you have like a jet. Don't be like, I need $5 more million. They are stealing from me. So I feel that if I give to the internet, I feel very well just taking, like, for free, Bjork's new record. I don't know. Like, Bjork can go in there and read my stuff for free. I will not charge her. But if I want to have the nice vinyl thing of Bjork, you know, weirdly dressed, I have to give some more money to Bjork. But you know, that's fine. I don't know if it's like it works perfectly.
The profits do kind of come in a circuitous route. It's not a direct exchange as much these days. But the more you give, the more you're known, and the more you can notify people. You know, think of all the followers you have for this now. They'll know to purchase your book.
I think that it will never happen, especially in comics, it will never happen again that you will be like McManus or McKay and you'll be like a gazillionaire. Well, Matt Groening did very well, but
not through newspapers.
I think within all art, it's like you know, suddenly it's like everyone can have like a tiny experience. Like my friend Kevin says that he likes to consider himself massive, like a cult massive, which means that he can go to different cities and there will be like 1,000 people there to listen to him. It's not like millions, it's like 50 million or whatever. You're not Michael Jackson, but you're living off singing.
But
of
maybe you
praying.
can survive as an artist that way. And
But
that may be a virtue rather
You know,
than being Charles
I love
Schulz.
that people think that artists should all be millionaires, but we are doing what we love. Like if it was for sacrifice, someone who works in a supermarket doing this all day should be more than a millionaire because he's doing a sacrifice, like something that's painful
It's a
and
very
boring.
unpleasant job.
I am like la 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 la, and then somebody gives me money. I'm like, thank you. I'm going to do that a little bit more. La 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 la. You know, it's a fucked up world that we got to, but well, me and Justin Bieber aren't complaining.
But you know what? This is the only one we have now. This is the world that exists now. It's not 1924, and there's no Hearst, and there's no Pulitzer. It's just you and me and Facebook, and if you've got something, if you've got a project that you want to do, you have a book you want to do, here it is. This is the world we have. My message to my students is do your project. Don't wait for the next Steve Heller to come along and make your career as he did mine way back in the make your own project, whatever it is that you want to do. Look at Liniers, look at people like Myra Kalman. You know what she does? I like shoes. I'm going to do a book about shoes. I'm going to do a book about food. Yeah. She's always painting food. Anything that's ooh la la. Somebody did an review of her where she said everything about Myra is ooh la la, and she loves things, and she's a gourmet about life, and people trust her, and they'll be guided by her choices, but also savor what she savors through her art. Understand that people will respect your passion, but follow your passion and make something that you can actually put out into the world and sell. And I think that's where it's going.
And also we are extremely lucky that it has never been like in the history of the world as many possibilities for as many artists, creating, as many movies being made, as many singers singing. Like suddenly we know there's, like, of course there's not as much money, but if you're doing this for the money, whatever, if you're like a director, an actor, whatever, if you're doing it for the money, then fuck you, you're a moron. But if you're doing it for something you love and you manage to make a living of that, to get able to just pay the supermarket and send your kids to school, that's amazing. That's incredible.
Will find other people who share your love for that thing, whatever that is. Penguins or gay elves or whatever it is, you're going to find those people. And to me, that's the whole point now. And social media allows us to find those people who share, and that word share is important. We're sharing all the time. And people will actually part with some money to buy a book, a poster, a t-shirt, socks, prints,
and before that,
whatever.
People your publishers will decide, like, I can invest money on this guy, because for some reason they go like, oh yes, this is the type of book. And there's all these new independent, efforts. And that's amazing. You don't have to go to Scribner's to be a novelist. You can start with online and then go from that to finding an independent publisher,
Yeah, we were talking about Peter Cooper earlier. Peter goes to all those conventions. He goes to the one in France every summer. What is that one? Like a small press. And he makes all these deals. You ever talk to Peter about how he operates? Yeah. It's fantastic. He's super smart. He knows how to negotiate, and not for big runs, and different languages. And he's always making books. And he survives very nicely. He's not a millionaire. Maybe he is a millionaire. I don't know it. But he's somebody who has figured that part of it out. And it's open to all of you. It's open to all of you if you can just be strategic and cut with the grain, cut with what you love, pursue your passion, and then turn it into stuff. I want to thank Liniers. It was a wonderful journey. Thank you, Nathan. And I think we can stick around for a few minutes after this is over if you want to come up and just talk, or ask. Maybe he'll draw a rabbit for you. I don't know.